Ms. Hastings, if we could please have roll.
Commissioner Batterson? Here. Commissioner Burtnett?
Here.
Commissioner Henderson?
Here.
Commissioner Velasco? Here. Commissioner Carey?
Thank you. The minutes of the December 12th, 2017 commission meeting have been distributed. Has everybody had a chance to read through those? Any comments or changes? Then those will be approved as distributed. Item 4, public comment. I have 2 requests to speak. First, Ms. Garrett, if you'd like to go. Good evening.
Thank you. I'm Judy Garrett, and I'm representing the Buena Vista Beautifiers today, again. I wanted to tell you that on our January 24th meeting, we had the Beat Patrol Officer Coordinator, Matt Jensen, come to the meeting, and he's working on making sure that there will be a camera by the park, which makes us feel really good. And then we met a neighbor, and we're really proud of her because her name is Karen Ramos, and she lives on the corner of Pine and Park and has lived there 15 years. She has a little business of her own, so she's not here right now. She's in Mexico with an REI group doing their catalog. I mean, she's really out there. Young girl at Hancock College. But she's working on neighborhood watch signs for around the park, which we think is a really good idea. Today, I just have a few questions for you. One is Jim Davis told us about the open area at the back, and I've been watching the progress. Great progress, everybody. If you haven't seen the park, it's beautiful so far. But that open area, which is a big open space, I was wondering, Jim said it could be events, and I can imagine all kinds of events that could be there, but what is the surface? I want to know, because can kids ride a bicycle there? I just can't even imagine. I know DG because I have it at my house, and it's kind of messy when it gets wet. I just wondered about the surface of that. Maybe one of you will tell me. The other question I have that kind of shocked me is I don't understand the purpose of all those little rocks that are lining like a walkway, I presume, but they aren't very big. I think I could even pick some of them up. So I'm thinking, are kids going to walk on them? Are they set in cement? Could they be moved? And it concerns me. And I don't know what those rocks mean. And I was surprised when I saw them. And then the third question, which is constantly on my mind, when will the park be open? Is there an opening date proposed yet, other than just saying summertime? So that's how I feel. I worry about the park. As you know, I've been here many times, worrying about it since I walk over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Mr. Davis, would you like to take a moment to answer some of those questions, or is there another way that you'd like to address that?
The back area on the west side of the park is got to be decomposed granite, but also have a binder to make it a little firmer. It's not just the decomposed granite itself. As far as in the rocks, that is to be a decorative feature, and they will be concreted in, is my understanding with the plans. So they're not going to be laying loose. Everything. And then as far as an opening, we don't have a target date yet. Once the park is complete and will be turned over to from the contractor to the city, then we have some furnishings and things we need to go and complete that we committed to as cost-saving measures before the park will be ready to go. So we're hoping by early summer, but I really can't give you a date or a ballpark guess.
Okay, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thanks, Jim. One of the things that I had a meeting today with Rosie Narez from our CDBG staff, and then also with Ken Miles from Campfire. And one of the things that happened with their project, which was probably never happens ever in a CDBG project, they actually had money, about $24,000 left over from his project. Many of the things that we thought had to be done were done already. Example, the sewer line, there was already an existing sewer line which was not anywhere recorded anywhere, but so they saved, I don't know, about $10,000 on having to put that in. So the discussion this morning with them was what could they use that money for in the Campfires section of the park. And so Ken has some really good ideas about creating some kind of usable space in their back area that's kind of was a sand lot originally with a playground in it. So he's got some ideas of doing some shade structure in there and making that area more usable for and functional for, I'll say the older teen or younger teen, that 13 to 16-year-old, is that because the playground isn't really, for them, and so he's trying to come up with some ideas there. So that'll be another feature that Campfire will be making as part of their project there. So I'm hoping that we have a dedication before the actual summer date, so maybe in June sometime, when school is out, so that we can do the kickoff. I know the beautifiers have often offered to be involved in that, and so I would expect we'll start making some plans probably in the maybe April, May timeframe, so we can get involved and see what we want to do to kick that off. One of the things that we did change is that the whole park at one point in time in the landscape design was going to be DG pathways going through the park. When the contractor kind of ran the numbers for an additional $13,000, it was easier just to put in concrete. So now the whole park will have concrete walkways as opposed to DG walkways through it. So that'll obviously make it more durable for longer periods of time and kind of reduce our maintenance on it. So that was a $13,000 expense. I think that was well worth it. So those kinds of things have come up along in the project. So this is one of our Public Works and ours first real endeavors trying to do a project on this design build kind of a concept. So we're actually I won't say every day, but probably every couple of weeks, there's another opportunity that presents itself from the contractor that we either take advantage of or don't. So that's kind of delaying the process a little bit. But the contractor has been very responsive. The quality of the materials that are being used are top-notch items. So, we're happy with it so far. We're kind of waiting for the end, as Jim said, so that we can actually get in and look at tables and chairs for, along the pathways, drinking fountains, what else were we doing?
The other thing too is, being the parks guy, is wanting to make sure that the turf is taking hold, and that'll probably be the thing that's the biggest determinator, like we had at Oakley, is it looked like it was ready to go at a distance, but when you got up there, it hadn't filled in, the grass was real green, and once we get, it's going to have heavy use, so we want to give it the best chance to take hold. So that'll be another thing. I'll be as long as we can, but as soon as we can make it available and open, that would be another priority too.
And the other comment that was made was about the security camera. We actually had budgeted, I think, for 2 cameras at that park, which will be part of the police system. And right now,
we had one
Oakley,
in there. We had one in there originally.
Yeah, we had one in there
and it
originally.
came down with the project.
Oakley, Rice, the mall has the other one now. The mall has the old Oakley Clamor. So we will be having...
Tunnel,
thank you. All have cameras that are directly linked to the PD. They're the exact same blue light system that the PD has. So we'll be making sure that there are cameras in the area. And if they put another one up, that'll give us even more space coverage. So.
Great. Great. Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say, I know we've waited for this project for a long time, so I'd rather it be done right, waiting for the grass turf to settle than trying to rush in and get in there if we're not ready for the summer. I think
Yes.
the neighborhood deserves a good, start with the park, so.
The other thing that Mr. Miles mentioned today, I haven't even talked to Teresa about it yet, is that he is very interested in coming back in the summer with a youth program that we have our rec leaders there, and he has some of his staff maybe making the building available and actually running a joint kind of a program at Buena Vista. It's also one of our year-round sites, so we'll be back there with a program in the fall, maybe something else we're able to expand with the cabin there and be able to use some of their space.
Right.
So.
Very good. Thank you. Next speaker slip that I have is for Ms. Hayes.
I don't go anywhere without my friend. My name is Kathy Hayes, and I'm a resident of Santa Maria. and about 5 days a week I walk Rotary Park. And in late December, or early January, I noticed that the park trees and shrubs were getting a haircut, which is fine. The trimming looked good, and things seemed to be moving right along with that. It took a while, but looked like they all got a nice trim. I was walking down Sunrise, and at the corner of Sunrise and College, a tree that had been recently trimmed, at the base of the tree was set this bird's nest with some trimmed branches around it, trying to prop it up. And I don't know what the policies are or anything about, trimming a tree with a bird's nest, but I just want to let you know that I did a little research on this nest, and it's called a cup nest, and generally, birds who use a cup nest will return to the same area and in most cases use the same nest year after year. For birds who use this type of nest, to rebuild requires time and energy for scavenging for the nesting materials. And once the hatchlings are born and produced and growing, it can be very stressful for birds to not reuse their same nest from the previous year. There's a lot of books on bird nest identification, benefits to bird nests in our local ecosystem, and how to trim trees and not disturb a bird nest. I don't know if the city has a policy or policies about trimming trees or shrubs, first assessing whether there is a bird nest. If so, what are the next steps besides just removing the bird's nest? There wasn't any reason for this bird nest to come down. The tree wasn't posing any hazard to residents. It was a relatively small tree, wasn't making dents in the sidewalk or anything. So I'd like to ask the city if there was a policy about trimming trees and bird nest, and to ask that they begin to assess whether a tree or a shrub has a bird nest. Birds help our local parks, they attract bird watchers, and it's the right thing to do to leave a bird nest in a tree. So I can leave the bird nest if you want, or I can continue to take it around with me, so.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
As far as that area is trimmed by our contractor, I know our contractor is very vigilant looking for nests. There have been trees over the past 5 or 6 years that we have not trimmed because they found a nest in them, and we may have trimmed every other tree on the block. I will follow up with them and for that, and there's been an unfortunate miss, but it is not our policy to remove the nest or disturb the nest along those lines.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
Do they not trim in the spring when it's the nesting period? Is there a...
No, we trim 12 months out of the year. But we are don't see very many nests, but we do, trim 12 months out of the year.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Moving on, item 4A. I can't believe it's been a year already. It's gone very quickly. Whew. But I think we were just doing this. We were, definitely. So I gladly hand over the seat to you, sir.
So typically, what we like to do is to, first off, from the staff and the other commissioners certainly can do it on their own, but just to say thank you for serving as chair this year. Very eventful year for us. I was grateful that you were available to give me a little counsel on things and give me ideas on how to approach our different challenges that we've had over the years. But for the most part, I think we had a very good, very productive year. We were able to get projects like Buena Vista Park underway, apply for some grants, could get our soccer complex kind of moving, but even just working on the Mayor's Youth Task Force and getting that synergy of service for youth, I think it was a hallmark of this commission's past year. So we want to thank you on behalf of staff, and Commissioner Burtnett has your little token of appreciation, and
Shoes, I know.
I know.
How'd you know my son?
were they shoes? Oh, I didn't think about shoes.
This is nice. I actually really appreciate that, because I was just thinking about this past year, and I was thinking about how the beginning of the year, when we rotated chairs, we said goodbye to a longtime commissioner who has left us, and I think fondly of him ending each of our meetings by
Where does gavel? Yes.
pounding the gavel. So this is very nice. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When you can't get your class to pay.
I'll have the surprise factor the first couple times anyhow. Well, it's been a great year, and I think that we've made a lot of progress on a lot of different venues. I think there's a lot of work ahead, so it's exciting to see. Buena Vista Park's going to be a big one. There's so many exciting things on our future. The Arts Master Plan, I'm confident this is happening in this term, and see what the next year unfolds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burtnett did a very good job at his first meeting, sitting in for you, so he's all ready to go, he said, so.
Well, thank you for your confidence in me. I am humbled because both Ileana and Laura have been exemplary in this seat or in my tenure here, so I am hopeful that I will be able to measure up to your standards. So, thank you, and I
think they'll let you know.
yeah. Well, it's great. I got them on either side of me, Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And as we are at the beginning of the year, it is now time to consider our committee appointments. And I believe what we did last year was we just asked for volunteers for each one, I believe is what we did. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, I'll go first because I want to request one.
Okay.
Chair, can I request to remain on the Play Inc. as board representative?
I am happy to assign you that.
I believe the Play Board re-elected you as chair, as
Right.
president.
But last time I had to request to stay.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. We'll put you back in.
thanks.
Before we move on, there have been some changes, right, to the committees? We've
Yes, I was just
added
going to read through them.
3?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, sorry
with the
about
exception of the Play one.
Sorry to make sure.
So, Budget Committee, very critical this year. We're entering into the 2018-2020 budget, and it's not smooth sailing budget. It's going to be an extremely austere budget. The department is looking at probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a $500,000 reduction in this upcoming budget year. So that represents about 5% of our operating budget. So, and as you know, 80-something% of our budget is staff. So it's going to be a very difficult year. The managers and Dennis as the analysts have been working, getting prep materials. The budget instructions just came out the other day. Whoever wants to work on that, volunteers to be on that committee. This will be a working committee over the next 3 months for sure. So please be aware of that. Typically, we'll have give you a briefing just before the budget goes in, but there are going to be impacts this year, and I think the impacts that the community is going to be affected by. So we need to get your input on those decisions before they're made. The Park Development Committee, we do have projects still moving. The park development side of things is funded separately from our operating budget. So there the Enos Ranchos house and park development that needs to happen, or Enos Ranch, sorry, I'm living in the past. There is the Harvest Glen, the Equist Park site, which is next to Jimenez School. Those projects are on our capital improvement budget, and they'll be moved again into this next year, so there'll be work there. Community Partnerships Committee, it's time now to renew some of the agreements with some of our groups. Ryan Heath has been handling that for our sports organizations, but we still have the Pioneer Association, we have the Natural History Museum Association. Those groups are still out there that we need to renew their memorandums of understanding this year. So there'll be a little bit of work for that committee. Playboard, done. We can pass that one. The Arts Committee, the challenge, as Dennis and our two commissioners that are on it now are well aware, there is a block in the community who has absolutely no interest in the way that we're going with this. We're hoping to pull together enough support so that we can get something moving. Yesterday, the council had their goal-setting meeting, and one of the major things that you're going to hear about from the staff from the planning department is the downtown area. One of the ways I tried to couch the art plan is that it's kind of forward-thinking. When we want to move downtown and we want to do things downtown, art can be a major component of that, and that if we had an ordinance in place and a fee structure in place, then maybe those kinds of things could evolve a little easier than they do today, which is pretty much nil. The All-America City Committee, that committee is pretty much on a hiatus. Staff has pretty much taken on the function of trying to keep things associated with the All-America City going. So there is no committee appointment for that one this time. The Downtown Specific Plan, again, Commissioner Velasco's been working on that one, and I'm sure she'll want to continue. That's going to be coming close. Again, we'll get an update on that. And then the Multi-Field Use Committee, again, we're kind of at a standstill with that because we don't have anywhere to go. I mean, we got input at our couple commission meetings ago. We had an opportunity to pull a group together. Jim did that. We got their input, and now it's just a matter of time. Missing links in that still remain the elementary school district and their policies, practices, and procedures for field use. And then who's willing to step up from those community soccer groups and actually get involved with money to see some field renovations and those kinds of areas. We did have a little bit of money in the budget this year for field renovation, and unfortunately that had to get directed to projects like Buena Vista Park that were short some funds. So we may look at that again during the budget process and see if we want to earmark some dollars for field development. And those are the committees.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Director. I have received one special request. Are there any other specific special requests? I'll take one from each of you if you'd like to start with, and then we'll kind of go around after that.
I'd like to stay on the Arts Committee. I think we're both new,
Please.
just, yeah.
I suspected so. Okay, we will honor both of those. Is there one, Ann, that you would like in particular?
Park development.
Park development.
Whatever else needs to be.
Thank you. I love that. I would like to take a step away from my normal modus operandi, and I would like to be a part of the budget committee so that I can learn and grow in that. So I'm going to assign myself to that. And now I will take another round of one from each of you, and we'll see if we can get all our spots filled.
I have another special request.
Please.
May I please remain on the Downtown Specific Plan Committee if nobody else objects?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I want to stay on the Park Development Committee. Is that this, wait a minute, am I confused? Multi-sports field use, how is that different? We've never met with the Park Development Committee, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's why. Confused, yeah.
So which,
Well, if you need people in both, I'll do both. If we need that many spots.
please.
I think what we can do is enroll that one into development, if you want to work
Oh,
on
okay.
development, because I don't really see
Yeah,
a
the
committee
Yeah,
doing a whole heck of a lot more.
Okay.
We gather all the public input, so I think we're going to be going on with that. So we can just enroll that function into the development
works.
committee.
So I'm going to strike multi-sports field use committee, and I'm going to roll that into park development committee, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
good.
I'm happy to be part of the Community Partnerships Committee if that gets me off of doing the budget. I do not feel like expanding myself.
Understood.
Ms. Rayburn will assure you, I know nothing.
Okay, so do we need two on the budget? Because it looks like Ann would be the only one. Are you a budget kind of person?
Like I said, I'll do whatever.
Get
Yes,
two
ma'am.
greenhorns on that committee?
We'll teach you.
You'll teach us. Okay, Burtnett and Batterson. Velasco is on 2. Okay, everybody is on, oh, I'm only on 1. So, community partnerships, I will assign myself. Okay, it looks like we have a full slate. Thank you, ladies. That was very easy and painless
Thank you, Commissioner.
for now.
Thank you.
There might be weeping and gnashing of teeth later. Okay, excellent, thank you all. Okay, so now we are going to hear from Netta, I believe, on the downtown streetscape plan.
Drum roll.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Hoster. I just thought I would introduce myself as well and introduce Netta and the project, but I've met a handful of you. I am the new planning division manager, and I've been here since October, so I still have lots to learn, but we have such a great team. They're definitely making it easy for me, and I'm really excited to be here. And Netta Zaire has been championing this project in a grant that the city received from Caltrans, and she's going to give you an update on the status and a little background on what we've done so far and where we're going in the future. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Ryan.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Ryan said, we just want to take you along, one on the journey that we've been on, and then where we're going from here. We're going to be talking about 2 projects in particular that pertain to the downtown area. So to explain to you what we consider the downtown area, here's a graphic of the boundaries of the downtown specific plan. In the darker orange that highlights South Broadway and Main Street are the areas that we've been focusing particularly on in this study, and then kind of the core blocks or development that surrounds Main and Broadway radiating from the intersection. The goals that we have for these plans is we wanted to really look at how do we enhance our primary corridors in the downtown and make them not just accessible for vehicles, but make them accessible for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and make them what the industry calls a multimodal experience, that you're having equity for all transportation types, not not just vehicles. Pedestrians are a transportation type, so are bicyclists and transit. And right now, Main and Broadway are very large streets. They operate like highways instead of city-scale streets, and they are not very comfortable to travel around for the pedestrian or the bicyclist. And another goal that we had was to make downtown look more like a downtown with things like street furnishings, wayfinding signs, art, and other elements that are characteristics of what you see in other downtowns that make them differentiated from every other part of the community. Other goals were to connect it to other areas of the city, including within the downtown itself, to the civic uses on McClellan, to Allen Hancock College, and the surrounding neighborhoods, to really look at how downtown can be a catalyst for economic redevelopment for our city and be a higher revenue generation and center than what it is now, and rebrand and define what really the identity of our downtown area is and give it a new identity and a rebranding. And then also to create some more community gathering spaces within the downtown core that the community can gather together and have festivals or programs or farmers markets or activity nodes. And then to make downtown just an overall great place to live, visit, and work. As we identified all these goals, we really discovered that we would need 2 plans to accomplish this. And because of that, we are doing 2 simultaneous studies together. We received funding not only from Caltrans to look at the street network, but also from the Santa Barbara Foundation to put together what we're calling a downtown framework plan. So the 2 plans are the downtown streetscape plan, which will focus on the streets and the public realm, basically everything from the sidewalk into the street, so the areas you walk, you bike, and you travel on. And the downtown framework plan will look at focusing on redevelopment opportunities and identifying public gathering spaces in the downtown. You all with me so far? Yes, I know that was a mouthful. So what does downtown look like today? Why are we focusing on these efforts? So here's 2 pictures of our existing downtown. The one on the left is of North Broadway with Perlman Park just on the right-hand side of it. As you can see, there's a family walking there, but they're the only family walking there, and there's a lot of vehicle traffic and movement. And then on the right side is a picture of West Main Street in front of Taqueria Guerrero and some of those shops there. Again, there's some good framework here, but there's definitely some areas of improvement and ways we can enhance this existing conditions. Here's another shot of South Broadway looking from the pedestrian bridge on the left-hand side. And again, if you look at this looks is more conducive to what a highway or a freeway or a large just vehicular corridor looks like instead of what typical downtown environments look like. And then here's a shot in front of City Hall where pedestrians are crossing, but as you can see, not a lot of crossing amenities or pedestrian amenities for those that are trying to cross. And so looking at our existing conditions, there are definitely areas of improvement to make downtown feel and look more like a downtown. So why does downtown look the way it does now? How did we get here? What happened along the way? And if we go back in history, here's a picture from the 1800s of what downtown used to look like. Vastly different. Large 2-story historic buildings. As you can see, there's lots of pedestrians on the street. There's horse and buggies that used the area, and it was still a very active, vibrant downtown city center. Moving through into the 1900s, here's 1920s where cars started to enter the scene, and this is a shot of Broadway looking south, and that pole marks the intersection of Broadway and Main Street. So on the left-hand side of the picture, that's actually where Perlman Park is now. And right behind that, where that 2-story building is where that firefighters memorial is. But as you can see, there were buildings that line the streets with awnings and active sidewalks, and the street network was more than just the vehicles, it was all of the things associated around it. And on that picture on the right is people actually standing in the middle of the streets around the flagpole, and those buildings around it, there were buildings that marked all four corners. Moving into the 50s, the vehicle became more commonplace, and the roads got paved and were paved in the same width of what used to be there, because the streets were designed at that time so horse and buggies could actually U-turn in the middle of the streets. And so those roads weren't actually designed because of the vehicle needs, they were designed because that's what was there, and they had built the buildings around it. And so the number of lanes that went into the road was because that's how much right-of-way there was. And as you can see, though, even though there's a bicyclist on travel there's pedestrians out, and there's still a lot of activity happening in the downtown. Here's a shot of Broadway and Cypress, where that intersection occurred, and I'm going to toggle from what it looked like in 1950 to what it looks like now. So there's a vast difference from what it used to look like. That's the exact same location. Cypress doesn't exist through the city center anymore, but that's what it used to look like. And here is an overview picture of what the existing grid of the downtown used to look like and what it looks like now since Town Center East and West has been developed. So this existing grid was torn down to build the new malls, which disrupted the existing grid and unfortunately did remove some of our historic buildings that lined our street frontages. So the question now is, where do we go from here? And to really answer that question, we wanted to hear from what the community had to say and what the public wanted to see happen in their downtown. It was very important for community development and public works to really get the pulse and take a litmus test of what the community's desires were. And so we held a couple of community workshops where we invited the community to come do some walking tours with us, to sit down and discuss their ideas and their visions for the downtown. We held 2 workshops and did multiple walking tours. Here's some photos of this. And then we also went out to the community itself. We did a lot of outreach events. We went to Downtown Fridays. We went to Hancock College and spoke to students in a leadership class. We went to Santa Maria High School and spoke to students there. We went to several migrant programs and literacy programs for the Spanish-speaking population and did Spanish outreach and got the feedback of our migrant and Latino and Hispanic families and community. We also went to Vallarta Market, to the Rotary Club, and to numerous churches. I think we went to 10 in total, where we just went out and put up visual preference boards and asked the community what their ideas and desires were for the downtown. One tool we used were visual preference boards, and we had different boards, 11 different ones in total, that had different concepts on it, and the community was given dots, and the green dots represent things that they liked, and the red dots represented things that they didn't. They were pretty consistent in how they felt about certain things. And from there, we got to gather a real idea of what elements the community was looking to incorporate into the downtown, so that this plan didn't end up being something that we wanted or just the consultants were recommending, but really that incorporated the desires of the community. The overall concepts and ideas we were hearing from the community is they wanted walkable streets downtown. They wanted an environment they felt safe walking around in, that had more amenities than there is right now, and they wanted more things to do downtown. And from there, what they basically were discussing that they wanted were a concept called complete streets, which are streets designed for all user types. If you look at these 2 pictures, the top picture shows separated bicycle facilities for bike riders, large sidewalks for pedestrians, and refuge areas for pedestrians so that they feel like they could walk around amongst the vehicles and feel protected. And then same with the bottom picture, there's actually pedestrian, bike facility, landscape buffer, and then vehicles. And these are concepts called complete streets that are designed for all user types. Another concept based on what the feedback was right sizing. Sizing streets for all users and that are actually designed to the right size of what the community needs. On the left hand, you see kind of a similar situation to Broadway, 3 lanes with some on-street parking, very wide street. And then on the right, it's been what they call right-sized, where bike facilities, a buffered bike lane's been added, it's been brought down to 2 lanes, crosswalks have been enhanced, and landscaping has been added so that this street feels more of like a community street versus a highway or just a vehicle designed street. Here's some more examples of that. On the top pictures of what the streets look like before, on the bottom is how they've been redesigned to be right-sized. On the left, the street was right-sized. It added lots of landscaping, outdoor dining. It transformed that downtown from a stark area to be a very lush, engaging outdoor environment. And the same with the pictures on the right. Those street was redesigned to include bike facilities, more landscape planters, on-street dining. That just made it a more vibrant downtown atmosphere. And so based off all those ideas and community feedback, we came up with some concept ideas. And again, the area that we're focusing on is in this core area radiating from Main and Broadway. If we first take a look at Main Street, on the left is what is existing on West Main Street, and on the right is what's existing on East Main Street, intersected by Broadway. And here's the first concept for West Main Street. The main focus of the redesigns, and I know you're like, this is sections and just drawings, what does this all mean? And just to give you an idea of what's existing, if you look at the top picture, that's what's existing on West Main Street. What's the most common thing you see? Cars. West Main Street was about 80% right-of-way dedicated to the vehicles. And so it's taking back some of that vehicle area and giving it back to the pedestrians and bicyclists. So the idea on West Main Street is to widen the sidewalks. That's what the orange represents, adding what we call bulb outs or curb extensions on the intersections. That allows pedestrians to walk further out in a safe refuge area while crossing the street, so that increases their visibility and decreases the amount of street they have to cross. It adds more on-street parking, even though there already is on-street parking on West Main Street, and then enhances all the intersections to provide better crosswalks and delineation for the pedestrians. We are also looking at a concept to incorporate bike lanes onto West Main Street. We've been exploring that idea because is that the safest place for bicyclists? Is it not? And we're going back and forth with the consultants and trying to figure out a design that would work. Yes?
Can I ask, how will that be determined, whether those are included or not? Does that go back out to the public?
First, the consultants are looking at if there's enough right-of-way to do that. Is there enough real estate to incorporate all of those things? And then are the speeds and the type of vehicle traveling on that road safe enough to include bike facilities, and to make them the safest, what kind of bike facilities should be there? So there's a lot of studies and analysis on bike facilities and what's the safest and best way to use them on certain streets. And so right now the consultants are just analyzing if there's enough room to accommodate them to do them on West Main Street and East Main Street.
And if it's not found, will they be provided on another
Yes.
parallel street?
Yes.
Because
Two other parallel streets.
Okay.
And
So whether it's safe or not, people are going to be on their bicycles.
yes, but it's determining what are the best travel lanes for them, what are the best streets for them that would feel safest, because if they don't feel safe using them, they're not going to use them and they'll find alternate routes.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Would they, right now we have a lot of trucks going on Main Street. So will those trucks use other streets? Is that, you know?
We've had a lot of similar questions. We have the same question you do. There's been lots of discussion of what to do with the trucks on Main Street. It's a heavily used truck route. There are multiple things that can be done. One thing that can be done is establish designated truck routes for the trucking community and designate alternate streets for them to use outside of Main Street, such as Betaravia or other roads, or that the designs of Main Street and the revitalization of downtown will be enough of a deterrent itself that trucks will naturally look for the path of least resistance, and that will no longer be Main Street. And they'll naturally disperse throughout. A truck study can be done, and we have discussed that maybe that's an approach that we should do, see actually how many trucks we do have traveling through there and in the community, where they go, and what's the best way to approach it. So if that's something that even this commission thinks is, yeah, you guys should look into that, our planning commission has also voiced the same idea.
Our committee meeting, when Ryan presented this, one of the things was a lot of times the truck drivers are just going off the direction of whatever cooler has given them direction. So if some way we can work with those facilities to make sure that they're redirecting in different routes. So maybe knowing where they're going would be a good study and working with them moving forward.
Absolutely. Lots of ways to tackle that. If there's no other questions on West Main, I'll jump to East Main Street. So here, East Main Street connecting through Broadway and then onto East Main. On East Main, the approach is similar to that on West Main in the idea of extending out some of the sidewalks and adding on-street parking. I know that seems counterintuitive right now because most of it's surrounded by parking lots. And you're like, why would you put on-street parking next to a parking structure that has thousands of parking spaces? If we are thinking long-term into the future and the idea of redeveloping downtown, if the mall were to be redeveloped or some of these parking lots were to be redeveloped, you would, in exchange for the surface parking lots that are being underutilized right now, build back that framework of buildings up along the street frontage with restaurants and stores facing the sidewalk. Then you're going to have convenience parking of on-street parking right in front of those uses. It's also a traffic calming measure that when you start to add what you call friction on the sides of the street, it naturally slows people down because it doesn't feel like a highway anymore. All of a sudden there's people parked there, the lanes are narrower, there's trees. That slows people down in general. And if a goal of ours is to make downtown a more walkable and bikeable area, we do need to slow vehicle traffic down and make a little bit more friction so that people aren't traveling on 40, 45 mile an hour pace in the downtown area. Also to add enhanced crosswalks and crossings at these intersections to provide better pedestrian crossing across these areas. And same, we're going to look at how bike facilities could or should be incorporated. Here are some photos of what these ideas I just talked about were. That center picture is what a curb extension bulb out looks like. Again, it's just creating bump outs onto the street and pedestrian refuge areas to make that crossing distance smaller. It also slows vehicles down. On the right, there's a picture of a parklet. What a parklet is it's an area that part of the street is reconverted into another use besides just travel lanes. So if you look here, this is actually where the curb and sidewalk is. What they've done is they've turned this on-street parking into outdoor dining and put benches and tables out and planters around it to create a refuge from the travel lanes. This is a concept that can be explored and that we're looking at exploring on Main Street and Broadway, turning some of the on-street parking into easily convertible areas. Should a restaurant or a building be built and be converted into an area where there can have outdoor seating and dining, we can provide that for them. That starts creating that ambiance of the downtown environment and add some character back into the downtown. The street trees are actually planted right in the middle of what used to be a travel lane. Again, this was the sidewalk, and now there's a street tree in the travel lane. So in some of the areas where there are 3 lanes, like on East Main Street, if we bring that back to 2 travel lanes and turn what's called a trap lane, a 3rd lane that just turns into a right-hand turn pocket that goes nowhere, that can be reconverted to another use that could serve more purpose in the downtown environment. And then here on the left is just what enhanced sidewalks can look like with more activity, more pedestrian scale amenities like benches, trash cans, signage, and lighting conducive to a downtown environment. If there's no questions on that, I'll jump to Broadway. Here's North Broadway on the left-hand side, and then South Broadway in front of Town Center East and West on the right-hand side. Here again is a cross-section of what it looks like right now. 3 travel lanes in each direction, and then right-hand turn pockets and left-hand turn pockets everywhere. This area then would be redesigned to provide more pedestrian crossing opportunities and enhanced crosswalks at each of the intersections. It also looks at exploring reconnecting Church Street back through and reestablishing some of that existing grid. Adding bike facilities onto Broadway on either side, extending out the sidewalks and adding on-street parking here. Again, same concept as East Main. Might seem counterintuitive right now, but if these areas were redeveloped and were no longer surface parking lots, you could provide on-street parking for those new buildings. And then here's North Broadway, similar concepts, reincorporating on-street parking and the bike facilities back onto those streets. Here are 2 pictures. Here on the right is what a raised buffered bike lane looks like, which is a concept that we're exploring. It has the sidewalk right adjacent to the bike lane that's then buffered by street trees or landscape, and then there's the vehicle road. It's raised because the curbs and gutters and sidewalks are on the outside part of the bike facility, and then there could be on-street parking or the vehicle travel lanes. This is a safe mode of transportation for the bicyclists, and it's easier for bicyclists and pedestrians to coexist than bicyclists and vehicles. And then on the left, again, is that concept of converting those trap lanes into on-street dining. As you can see, there's some people, there's on-street parking, and then all of a sudden it turns into a parklet where there's on-street dining because there's a restaurant use right next to it. Any questions about, I'm giving you lots of information, so please feel free to jump in if you have any questions. If not, in addition to that streetscape plan, we are looking at rethinking downtown. So this is where the framework plan comes into play of if we were to redevelop the downtown core, what should we do? How should it be redeveloped, and what concepts should we incorporate? And the primary concept that we are exploring, or idea that's being explored, is the idea of reestablishing the downtown grid. To bring back what used to be in downtown Santa Maria and build back what was there before, and exploring the opportunities of pushing back that street network into the downtown and breaking down the large super blocks into more walkable blocks. So that would look like something like this, that if there was an opportunity to mass redevelop this block area that where should those street networks go back through? Maybe a town square plaza park could be reestablished into the center of downtown as gathering space. Mixed-use buildings could be built along the other blocks that would have people dining, shopping, eating, living, and working in downtown, and provide opportunities for all those people to have common gathering spaces and amenities in walking distance of them. The framework plan is looking at lots of concepts and ideas. Some of those concepts and ideas also look at if the malls were never torn down, where could we infill around them? There are lots of parking lot spaces around them that could be reconverted into other uses that arguably could be better or higher uses than storing vehicles, and what could that be? And there's also opportunities of where could we put a town plaza, where could we put a festival space or a park space that could be really usable. A concept idea that's being explored is, in exchange for Perlman Park there, what if there's an alternate location in this area where we could put a larger, more easily accessible plaza space that could have uses around it that feed and funnel it, and maybe, in the future, if that happens, the redevelopment opportunities of Perlman Park or the Firefighters Memorial to other uses. I bring that up because those are public spaces now, but those are some concept ideas that are floating out there.
I'm sorry, in exchange for what?
So the concept idea is, if we were to build a larger gathering space or plaza space or something of that nature somewhere else in downtown, could we then maybe redevelop or do something alternate with Perlman Park, partially or fully? There's lots of ideas. It's a concept idea. I mean, you could do anything under the sun. What could that look like? What would that be like? There's the consultants are looking at developing some concept ideas for that as part of this study. Any questions about that? Any feedback on any of this? I'm just going to go into next steps of what we're doing. Yeah.
I think Perlman Park, in addition to more plaza space, I think redeveloping Perlman Park into anything other than public space, open space, would be a major drawback. I just got to put my 2 cents in there. Downtown has very little public space, and adding more, I think, is definitely something that the community needs. But taking anything away, I think, would be a step in the wrong direction.
Okay.
I have been waiting, and I have several thoughts, so
Sure.
I'm not sure if I should wait till you finish and start, or...
The next thing I'm going to go into is next steps. So if there's anything you want to talk about now, and then at the end I can just go into where we're going from here.
Okay, I'll save one of my questions for later. Two thoughts. It seems to me that if anything like what you're talking about with the streets and adding parking spaces along the side of the streets, extending the buffering for pedestrians and whatnot, you're going to have to redirect trucks because traffic is such now that it's going to be a nightmare to do that. Having said that, hey, let's have a nicer downtown. I mean, I'm all for that. Friday nights at the West Town Center, etc. My second thought, and I don't know if you've thought about this, I am a cyclist. I am also a cyclist that's been hit by a car, had a expensive ride to Marion. But what you need to consider when you're thinking about cyclists in the downtown is that you're not going to have cyclists per se, the guys who are in our funny suits and helmets and expensive bikes. We avoid downtown. Mm-hmm. It's bad. Take Alvin West, get over there, and then take the 166 to Guadalupe afterwards. after town. But what you will have are what we call commuter cyclists who are using it as their main transportation. And so my thought is those are the cyclists that need to be protected from traffic a little bit more, because they're the people who need the protection. And so I would solidly think in those terms.
Would something like this be something you would think is a good idea, or it's
I
buffer?
I do think that's a good idea. And whether, if you have to go to the other idea, you had a picture up of a dedicated lane in one of your previous pictures. If you ask cyclists as opposed to commuters, they don't work. Those separate lanes, because drivers who aren't cyclists don't give them enough room. I'm a cyclist and I used to be a waiter, so I give lots of respect to waiters and cyclists that I see. So those are two thoughts. I do have another thought that I would like to throw in there, but I want you to finish just so I don't kind of trample over what you're about to say.
Any other thoughts or feedback from the other commissioners?
Well, just looking at these two pictures, the other consideration is that the bikes don't get into the pedestrian areas. You see how this one bike is crossing over?
This one?
No, the top one. He's right on the line between the pedestrian and the bike way. And I don't know how you prevent them from going over, but I see that a lot. In the Santa Barbara area, where the bicyclists will get out of that lane, and I don't know how you prevent that.
Well, that cyclist there looks like he or she is crossing. And so that's actually the best place for that person to be at that
In
moment.
the blue pants?
She's saying this. He just looks like he kind of swerved out of his lane, and
He's on the line between.
I see what you're saying. I thought you were talking about looks like there's two cyclists going perpendicular to him.
I'm not sure.
those are just bikes in a bike rack.
I think
Oh,
they're
bike
just
racks.
parked.
Oh, okay.
And the consultants have thought a lot about that interface, and there's a lot of case studies from places. Usually the pedestrian bicycle interface is much less dangerous than the bicycle vehicle interface.
This
And
one looks better because it has some trees and things kind of
Okay.
separating it.
so the buffers between the bicyclists and the vehicle traffic is something that you think is good. Pedestrian, I'm
And there
sorry.
also looks like there's some posts or whatever on this other side that also helps to, keep them separated a little bit.
Okay. Any other feedback? If not, and you can jump in if you do think of something, I'll move into the next steps of what we are doing. Again, we're kind of at the very beginning of our concept ideas. As you can see, those were rough drawings, and we've been going through and talking to the commissions and the decision makers about these early concepts so we can hear everyone's feedback before we come up with a draft plan. So the next steps are we're going to develop some concept character designs for the streetscape, the cutesy stuff, for lack of a better term, the lighting, the furniture, the signage, where the art should go, wayfinding signs, things like that. and diving into the details of what the sidewalk widths are, materials, things like that. From there, we're going to develop a draft plan and obtain Caltrans approval on that. Main and Broadway are Caltrans facilities, and we do need their approval for any modifications that are done to those streets. The great thing is this is a plan that we're developing with Caltrans funding, and so they are an intimate partner in it, but we do need to make sure that some of these concepts are approvable by them. And then from that draft plan, we're going to hold a joint planning commission city council study session that will make an open house for the public to come and view the draft plan, the concept ideas, and get again their feedback and input on what the final concept idea is for the redesign of Main and Broadway. And then from there, we'll take the plan through the hearing approval process. The goal is to have both plans approved by June. Yes. We are on a very fast timeline, and we are on that fast timeline based on deadlines from Caltrans. Yes.
I have a question. I must have missed it. Is there funding from the Santa Barbara Foundation, Caltrans, just for the planning?
That's a good question. The Santa Barbara Foundation is paying specifically for the downtown framework plan that looks at the redevelopment of the downtown area. The Caltrans funding is only for the streetscape, for the street, the sidewalks, and those concepts. The Caltrans fund or the budget for the streetscape plan is $300,000, a much more robust fund, so that plan is going to be much more robust. And the funding from the Santa Barbara Foundation was $20,000, so that plan will be less detailed and a lot less specific than the streetscape plan.
Will this be the only time that we have an opportunity to provide feedback before it goes to the hearing process?
This is the only time for feedback before it goes to that joint study session, but we definitely will invite you to come to that. Please do, if you're able to. Also, we will bring the draft plan back through your commission before approval. But that joint study session and open house will have visual boards, and the consultants will be there, and we're inviting the general public to come to that as well, who've been involved throughout the process. We have gotten close to, between our online survey that we did and the numerous events we went to, we've gotten close to about 1,000 responses and feedback from the community. I know when compared to 100,000 people, that doesn't seem a lot, but that's probably the most robust public outreach that we have done, and is a pretty good test case for what the general community is looking for. And again, we tried to try to reach every income level, demographic, social status, age range that we could. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. If you think of anything else, as you know.
Hey, Netta.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to add a couple just considerations. These are not city streets. These are Caltrans streets. So while we showed lots of pictures about pretty aggressive pedestrian enhancements, all of this has to be approved by Caltrans. So a part of this whole effort is balancing all of these different needs and users, and also having something that Caltrans is going to support as well. So while in some of the photos we saw things brought down to 1 or 2 lanes, we're not removing lanes with this, other than there is a scenario for removing some track lanes on Broadway. Trucks are a part of the picture here, and Caltrans needs to approve whether or not a truck route is realigned, and so far we don't have support for that. So these planning efforts are really, there's a near-term project, things that we can do on Main Street with bulb outs and crosswalks very soon, and Public Works have some funding to actually implement some of those items, to very long-term vision like the framework. what's going to happen with the mall and the redevelopment. So there's different scenarios within all of these things we're talking about. So I just wanted to put that out there to keep that in the back of your minds as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that gets to my question. You said a couple of different times about, well, if the parking lots are used for another purpose, or if, and then you showed us the grid that no longer included the mall.
Yes.
I mean,
How
that's
realistic is it?
tens of millions of dollars that we're talking about. So that I assume is the long-term, we're not even close.
It really is going to be the city working with the owner, the landowner, and what's going to happen with that property, and then going from there.
Okay, thank you for your presentation.
If you think of any other questions along the way, or, you know, as you mull this over later on because you can't fall asleep, feel free to contact me, or you can let Commissioner Velasco know. She is your downtown committee representative, and we are trying to, particularly in this phase, meet monthly to talk about these ideas, so please feel free to funnel questions or comments or desires through her. Why we wanted you represented on that committee was exactly for that reason. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, any new business we need to discuss?
Thank you, Commissioners. We don't have any real specific business. I want to give you a few updates on things going on.
Great.
And I don't know if everyone knows Mr. Ng, Director of Community Development. So, just so you know that he's here in support of his staff. Just a few updates, mostly project driven. So the Enos House Foundation is done. I actually walked the foundation today. They weren't doing any work on it today, so it was a good time to get in there. Next steps for that is to actually get the house lowered onto the foundation. We're hoping that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. I think I mentioned to you before that we were paying $1,000 a month rent for that, so that was $17,000 in rent. That's how long it took to get the house off the dollies that it was on. And to move it the 100 and probably 200 feet from where it was $31,000. So half as much as it cost to bring it from the top of the hill down to the bottom of the hill. So how did they put that? They had us in a headlock. So that's what it ended up costing. However, the contractor is Cal Portland. They just poured part of the project is to pour the slabs so that the water tower can be placed. And that'll be immediately to the north of the house. And you could if you could drive by there on Bradley, you'll see that setup. Next steps for that is once the contractor is done, the site will be fenced off around the house. We have a number of community people, businesses have stepped up to do things like paint the house. They want to do those kinds of things. We're going to try and coordinate that with the appropriate departments. There's a very eager group of people at the city that want to just walk through the house. So we'll invite you when that comes.
I would like to.
It'll be in a condition that we can actually have people walk through it. So we're working on it. That's a real positive step. The other thing, I mentioned Harvest Glen, the Quistapache Park site earlier, and I think I mentioned before that that site was taken on, the design of that site was taken on by Cal Poly students in their landscape architecture class. They had about 25 students create 25 different plans that I think it was just before Christmas, I got to go up to Cal Poly and take a look at those plans. And very interesting ideas, and again, the construction committee, the park development committee of the commission will have a chance to take a look at those. What we've asked Public Works to do is to kind of stop construction as to where the developer is now. there's a 2.5 acre park site and then a 7 acre basin. And the students just really just said, oh, well, heck with that. We're just going to scrape the whole thing clean and, you know, put a basin in and do things, but make it more creative. So there's about 5 plans that have a lot of potential. One of the things they would require is that the basin kind of be enveloped by the park, as opposed to having the park and then the basin. So, yeah, it's some trade-offs there. You know, we'll have to see if it's even possible. Commission's going to have to make some decision as to whether or not 2 soccer fields that fit in that basin are a necessity, or whether other designs and uses might be able to maybe accommodate 1 soccer field and a lot more open space, and, you know. So, anyway, so just be prepared. We'll be asking you for your opinion when that comes on.
As long as it's not a parking lot. Sorry.
We have street parking there, I think, or we're going to ask for street parking. Oh, and the other thing is, and I sent you a message, but you didn't recheck your phone, but that was good, that was good. You know, there's a joint meeting coming up. I don't think it would be inappropriate for the commission to ask to be part of that joint meeting. I mean, it's Planning Commission, City Council. You know, you're the other appointed commission, so, and they're talking about things like Perlman Park going away, or creating new park space, or public, what do they call it, public spaces. To say nothing of the fact that the landscaping downtown just has to go somewhere, and probably to us, you know. So, you know, I think you should be part of that joint meeting.
How do we
myself.
do that?
Well, I can just let her, I thought about it and
Yeah.
let her know that we should be included. I know we have, for Perlman Park, there's strong opposition on our committee to remove it, so, and on planning, so.
We understand the value of that corner. It's kind of like the council just approved the 3 or 4 story building across the street. You know, but there are other opportunities there. The building directly behind it, the sewing center, you know, that has some development opportunities that maybe the park can get incorporated into. If you look at Perlman Park, it goes from that corner and it meanders its way through the redevelopment, through the low-rise apartments is what I call them. And that was part of the original plan is, oh, we'll give the people public spaces that they can go out and use and, you know, be part of that. So the concept was there even back in 1970 1960s when they did that design. And it's kind of like Back to the Future. I was telling Teresa that former city manager Bob Grogan and assistant city manager, redevelopment director was Gordon Gill. That mall and Town Center West was their baby. And it fit the time because everybody was shopping in malls, but you lost your downtown. So it's...
I think a big part of that corner too is maybe not losing that public space, but reconfiguring it to have more usage. And so there's some concepts around that. And again, these are all concepts that, you know, that they're dreaming up and that they're reconfiguring and taking into consideration what the public has to provide. But, you know, a lot of them are kind of down the road and things we can do now, but it's just good to be thinking about them as we move forward, so.
Yes. Hey, and I think that's it. Do we have anything, staff, to bring up?
You want to talk about the playground?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, Dennis? Jeez.
Well, so much for the PowerPoint. Anyway, looking at the Kiwanis Club has brought an interest in putting an inclusive playground out of Presker Park, which near at a location near the current picnic area that Kiwanis built. It would be roughly the same size as, in fact, that's the other thing, good news, is Armstrong Park opened this month, so that's back up and running 100%. The size is roughly the same size as Armstrong Park. It would be an inclusive playground, have transfer stations, sensory domes where people that are getting overstimulated can go kind of isolate themselves a little bit. We have 1 or 2 of those at the Oakley Park Playground. So we're looking at the cost overall being trying to think, counting on the PowerPoint. Being about a little over $300,000, we are looking at some options as far as how we might be able to bring that down. That's including installation. We have to dig out an area to put the playground. So is that something we can have one of our local contractors do, so the playground company isn't bringing people up and having to house them, provide overnight stays. And then also the installation, we have a playground company here in town, Central Coast Playground, that does playground installation. Right now, they're not certified by this company to install their product. So if they get certified, then that would be another savings again. If they're certified, then we don't have to do the overnight stay for 2 or 3 weeks while the playground's installed. And also looking at different surfacing, safety surfacing options, price. So something that we're looking at moving forward on. Got also the Game Time, the Great Western Outdoor Recreation that we're working with is giving a substantial discount on the piece of equipment also.
I'm sorry, Jim, did you say, so Kiwanis is paying for this?
A portion of it, yeah.
A portion.
It would be a joint project.
So you'll be applying for a grant from CDBG or?
So for funding, the first phase is actually purchasing the equipment. So we were able to work, as Jim mentioned, with a vendor to get a substantial discount if we bought it for this upcoming March trade show. So those commissioners that are going to the conference will be able to actually see the piece, or a significant part of the piece, on display at the trade show. Then we'll ship it back up here to Santa Maria, and it will sit. It's $138,000 piece of equipment, and that'll come from the park fund. Kiwanis is, well, they're settling on how much money they're going to be able to do. The idea is that at their meeting on Thursday, they're going to present it to the membership and talk about how much of a commitment they want to make. Right now, I believe there is about $50,000 in their budget set aside from president to president who've made this a project that they're committed to do. So at minimum, it'd be $50,000. And as Jim mentioned, the components of it end up being construction. They are also looking at handling the community fundraising aspect of it, going out, finding those contractors to donate materials, donate time, as opposed to us asking for it, or even Play asking for it. It'll be similar to what we did with Rotary Park, where the city fronted some money for their projects along the way, and actually Play did also, and then Rotary paid back their effort. And just for continuity purposes, the Rotary Foundation, over the time of developing the park, contributed about $400,000 to the park. So, it was a sizable amount, and I think Kiwanis wants to try and do something similar. And they have their Queen fundraising effort. So those of you that have Queen fundraising efforts, certainly we want you to buy tickets and that kind of stuff. But it will go to that end. I think the next 2 or 3 presidents have committed. The past president, current president, and 2 incoming presidents have committed to the project. So, oh look, how did you find that?
Jim.
Oh, you're so good.
Jim, I have a question. You mentioned that Central Coast Playground isn't certified to install from this company.
Right.
Do we ever typically go with somebody that they are certified with? That way we can use them locally? Or is it just whoever kind of has a good equipment at the trade show, and that's who we go with?
Oh, okay. It's one of those that, this was a project brought to us by Game Time and
Kiwanis brought it up.
Kiwanis, yeah. And usually the installation is not, getting certified is not a big deal.
Okay.
It's making sure that it's going to be done to their standards. Each company has their own standards, and so it's usually not a major effort. And the owner was also excited about the possibility of getting another company that he can install for, because it gives him more business.
Sure would be good.
Absolutely.
It's something Central Coast Playground is interested in doing, so that we can use them locally. I mean, just because they're a local company, we don't.
And that would be up to Steve going ahead and getting that out, getting his certification from them. So Dennis, if you move that over to across the lake to the picnic area immediately next to the lake, and up just a bit towards that little path, right about in there is where we're talking about. It would go in that vacant space there. Close enough to the parking lot so that we can set out some accessible parking spaces there. And there's a path there already, and the Kiwanis picnic area is the one with the blue tint there.
That's the fire station in the bottom right.
What street is this?
That is
Northwest.
Prester Lane.
Okay, so when you're coming into the...
Yes. So, I mean, there's the price, $335,000. So it's a sizable project, you know, to get the commitment from. And certainly, you know, we don't have an inclusive playground in the city. All of our pieces are, you know, what they call in the industry accessible pieces. They meet the standard, but they're not designed specifically for individuals with disabilities or family members of individuals with disabilities.
Okay.
You know, so it's kind of a joint use kind of a thing, that anybody can use it. So.
Great.
It's fantastic.
I'm in favor of it.
Okay, good. Well, like I said, buy those Queen tickets. Only the Kiwanis ones, though, sorry to say, because that will be where the money's going, so.
I can make you a list of all...
Yeah, and I'll have to bring you tickets in to sell you, so.
Okay. So I'll take it that our old business is also, okay. Then informational reports. Page 8, budget.
Yeah, in your packet, there should be the budget sheet with 58.31% of the year complete. We are ahead of budget by 1.5%. We're in the good, so.
Well done.
That's right now through staff savings, and as we get ready for summer, some program expenses. Not sure they'll last too long, but right now we're at a 1.5% down.
Okay. Okay, noteworthy activities. January report looks like we had several things happening.
It was a busy over the holidays in January for us. And, you know, I won't say it was uncommon, but it was busier than normal. Lots of things going on. And then you see the upcoming event calendar that was left too. There's more stuff coming, so.
Indeed. Let's see, where's that? Okay. Well, it looks like Director's Report, Playground Project Proposal, you've already covered. Yep. Okay, number 8. Commissioner reports, official business conducted by a member. I will begin. I was at the 2 eating opportunities. I was at our Christmas dinner, which I very much appreciated. Thank you very much for having that for us. And then I was also at the Recreation and Park staff lunch we had with the best funky Christmas sweater. Yes, and I went and bought one just so I can be a part, but I thought that the winner was very good, so my hat's off to the people who put it together. Any other official business? Okay.
What Netta reported on for the Downtown Specific Plan Committee, we heard a week and a half ago, so I'm glad I didn't have to go into detail about that. She did a good job. And then we had our play board meeting in January, and so we discussed our budget, which is on track, and then future fundraising ideas that we have. We had the father-daughter dance that just happened. I seen pictures and it was great again. And mother and son daughter dance will be coming up soon. And then we're also, Cindy's working on the signage for the different fields that we can start fundraising for play and that, so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the great holiday dinner. In January, I did go, I don't know that it's official, I went to I've been going to the Buena Vista Beautifiers meetings. They're a really wonderful group of people, and she pretty much surmised what it was. They're planning all kinds of great spring day in the park, and they had a woman that goes all over the world and makes peace benches, so they're going to have a peace bench, and, I mean, it's just really, they have just really positive ideas, and it's just really cute. I like going there. The Arts Committee meeting yesterday, we didn't have a quorum. End of story. We did the New Year's Day hike in Los Flores Ranch. I went to Armstrong Park, and that is like the Disneyland of play sets. It's amazing. It's just so cool. If you guys haven't seen it. What else do we have? I have a question. Is this the right time to do that, or is that the next one? I have a question. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess it is. I live across from the levee, and a few Saturdays in a row, I've seen a van like race down the levee Saturday mornings when I'm like getting the newspapers or whatever. And I think, oh, who is that? Well, last Saturday I was on the levee, and he raced by again. It's Service Star. It's the people that are doing the changing the little dog things and emptying the trash. It must be the contracted person. So then I'm at Prisker Park, because I walked Prisker, and I was walking around Prisker Park, and there comes the van. And he was behind a little car, and you go really slow, there's a speed limit. He was gunning his engine for this little car, I guess, to hurry up. So whoever's in charge of that, I kind of thought that probably you need to be whatever, just FYI. Yeah, I think that's it.
Good.
Do you have something else? No. I don't have any official meetings except for the Arts Committee, which I think we'll be attending next week-ish. And we're excited to move forward on that. But we've been going to the park, so Armstrong Park. We went out to Grogan. My kids loved Grogan. And we did a moonlight hike at Los Flores. And all of those things, the people out there are wonderful.
Yeah.
I love the turf on both of the playgrounds. Those things are important. And then we've been out to Presker too, so just trying to hit all the parks. And they're great. They're in great shape, and my kids love them. But I think it's good PR too, or I don't know, the new play structures look different. And I know going back over old city council minutes, I think a lot of people are still confused about Perlman. It's a great playground, and once you get out there and you have little ones, it doesn't tell children how to play. They figure it out, and they play in all kinds of really interesting but safe ways. And so I'm glad to see that that's a progressive way that our department's heading, because even though they don't look like the monkey bars that we see in schools, they're very engaging for kids. And I'm super excited about this new one at Presker Park. There's a playground that we always hit in Calabasas when we do long road trips, because it's an inclusive playground and they're fantastic for everybody. So kudos to the department for being progressive.
Thank you very much. If you mention that to your council member about Perlman Park, yesterday I had to take quite a bit of a beating on the playground piece there, so.
I think it'd be a good commercial, like, this is how you play on this.
We could use your kids.
Come.
If you need somebody to go out there and demonstrate how it can be used, it's a lot of fun. And I understand it does look very different, but I'm glad that there isn't a bright yellow and plastic slide out there. It's in the middle of our town. I think it's nice.
Maybe we can have a play event, something, Safe and Strong Day, and we play on the...
Teresa will write that down.
And if I could just interrupt, I knew we were running late, so I didn't want to bore you to death. Safe and Strong has started again, and we're very excited about it, and we have some new ideas for it so that we get more hours of recreation there. It's going to be a challenge because of the budget, but we're thinking about getting sponsors.
Teresa's a risk taker now.
Oh, tell me about it. It's really risky around here. So, but that's how you grow. And so also, if any of you are still interested in being a part of the mayor's task force, we are still meeting in our steering subcommittee meetings, and we're alive and well. And people come there, and we don't have a venue to share some of the stuff that's going on. So one of the people that sits around the Mayor's Task Force table recruited an Allen Hancock College student to take notes and to provide press releases so that the whole community can keep up with what we're doing.
Great.
Thank you.
And one last thing that I saw, and I'm sure you all have seen it if you watch television, is the library's commercial that the library put together. I don't know if you've seen it. Nobody's seen it? Oh, then never mind. So basically what they did is a customer interview kind of segment, and it's about 30 seconds. And they did 3 or 4 different customers and things in there. And we were encouraged to go ahead and do something like that. So that may be something that we would do, maybe do a road trip commercial and take your kids to all the
That would be-
playgrounds and stuff.
Just thinking about like ActiveNet, how that's new and people don't know. It's like, let's go register for an activity and then let's go play after registering for this activity and, kind of take them to new things that we're doing. So
Yeah, Dennis, write that down.
I can produce.
Thank you.
We have at least 3 kids between us, little kids, right?
Oh, yes. And your
I look like a little kid.
I just,
Commissioner Batterton and Commissioner Carey are signed up, registered, all set to go to the conference. We'll talk about travel plans.
It's March,
We'll
right?
help you with that.
I noticed that our next meeting is during that, and I will not be here, so we will. Okay, thank you.
So there's no meeting that.
Okay.
So we're going to suspend the March meeting. I haven't had a chance to talk to the chair about it yet.
I'm going to take as a personal offense that you canceled my first full meeting.
You'll only have 11 meetings.
Sounds great. So we will adjourn until April, and we'll send out notifications. Thank you all.
Thank you. Meetings for upcoming downtown